Now we're joined now by the Science Secretary, Peter Kyle, to discuss all of the day's key developments on behalf of the government. A very good morning to you, Minister. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's start with the Prime Minister's trip to the United States. There's a lot of things on the agenda, of course. Is the number one item to secure a security guarantee from the US for whatever does evolve in terms of peacekeeping in Ukraine?
Ukraine is the number one item. There's a lot that's going to be on the agenda. Of course, when you come to these sorts of meetings, both sides will have different priorities. The idea is, for the first meeting, is to build the relationship, is to establish the special relationship for the era that we're living in. But Ukraine is of particular pointed importance at this moment in time because we're in the middle of this process where it looks like we will be negotiating a way forward, hopefully, that leads to peace. Now, we have President Macron earlier in the week, we've got the Prime Minister now, and we have President Zelensky coming together with Donald Trump later this week. So it's a really important week. What we're pushing for, obviously, is a sustainable peace that respects the sovereignty, the land integrity of Ukraine. That's what we're pushing for. And, of course, where there is a difference between the party leaders and all the parties, and President Zelensky's voice is the most important one through this, that we want to make sure that we find common ground going forward.
If there isn't a security guarantee from the US, then Article 5 of NATO, and with it NATO really in full, is sort of dead.
Well, the Prime Minister has said very, very clearly that that is what he is pushing for. We've been quite explicit about that. And, of course, the Prime Minister has been speaking frequently to President Zelensky through this process. So I'm not going to talk about what might or might not come out of these discussions. President Zelensky is there later in the week as well. But right now, that is what we believe is the best way forward.
Obviously, he's boosted defence spending before going there. No doubt that will appeal to some level to President Trump. He could also offer to U-turn on the Chagos Islands.
No, the deal we believe is on the table is a good deal. It hasn't been published yet, so when we do get to the point where it is agreed, we will publish it in Parliament and allow Parliament to discuss and debate the deal. Look, we believe it's a good deal. It is very important because this has always been part of the relationship with the US. The base is a joint, or is a US base that the UK uses as well. It's a joint base, and that it's part of our relationship. So it's very important for us that the US actually agree the deal that we have sealed. Again, this will be part, perhaps, of the discussions that happened between the Prime Minister and the President today, and let's see what comes out the other side.
Do you hope more collaboration on AI will be a consequence of this bilateral?
I do, and I know full well the Prime Minister is keen to discuss AI technology, but also find areas where we can collaborate to a greater extent going forward with the US. There are certain things, if you think about some of the latest medical technology, some of the latest climate technology, if you look at the uses of AI and the impact it can have on society, and some of the emerging technologies such as quantum, these are things that the US and the UK are real global leaders. And it is incredibly important in these technologies that you have Western liberal democracies leading the race for these technologies. By the US and the UK working together, we believe that we can stay absolutely clearly ahead of some of the rest of the global competition, and that would deliver benefits for both. So those are the sorts of things that the Prime Minister is really keen to explore on behalf of British people, but also for the global good as well.
It's really interesting to hear you frame it that way, because I guess one aspect that some people are wondering in this desperate race to win at AI, simplifying it, but to attract investment and get the UK to the top is that we're willing to sort of race to the bottom on rules and regulations. Obviously, there's been a big pushback by some of the nation's greatest creative minds in the last week during the consultation period. Is it wrong if a human profits off another human's copyrighted material? And by extension, is it wrong if a machine does that?
Infringing copyright is, of course, wrong. I mean, breaking the law, it's breaking the law, so breaking the law is wrong. But we are living in an age, actually, where you have the AI companies who are harvesting information from other territories. We're talking about what's called large language models. Not a single large language model has been trained in this country, which means that they are harvesting the information from other territories, primarily China and America and some of the other countries in the Gulf as well. Now, it's really important that we make sure we modernise the law because the copyright law is hundreds of years old. So it is fit for purpose going forward. We also have children who are growing up here who are data programmers, engineers. They are going to be key to the future of AI. What we don't want is to kill that industry so that those kids have to go abroad in order to thrive. And also the creative industries are using AI. I don't want them to all be using AI that comes from America. I want that to be using AI that's created in Britain. So what I won't do is choose between one side and another. We have the second largest creative arts industry in the world. We have the third largest market for AI in the world. These are both industries of the future as well, and I want both of them to thrive in Britain. It is going to be challenging, but we will find a way through, and at some point I will legislate for it, and Parliament can have its say on specific legislation.
It's such a difficult debate. I'm not suggesting it's easy, but just because, for example, China might be allowing copyright laws to be broken, should that mean that the same should happen here, or that you should relax it? Just to come back, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the consultation, I think, described the main objective that you have is for copyright restrictions to be relaxed, for AI developers to have to flag if they are using copyrighted material, but creative industries would have to opt out of that being the process, so rather than the law as standing to rule that being out.
What we're trying to do is I'm insisting that before I legislate, that AI companies can prove that they can have transparency in the way that their models use and consume copyrighted material, all creative material. I want to find ways where the artists today can be remunerated when their work is used, but also have this fundamental right that if they don't want AI models to use and have access to the material, that they can opt out for it. So that's what I've put forward in a consultation. The consultation only closed this week, and I will legislate for it at some point into the future. But I think these are the sort of bedrocks of the discussions we need to have in the future. But the status quo we have at the moment is simply not working, because all of the AI models are using this material already. They're trained outside of the United Kingdom, and at the moment, the technology that's being evolved is not benefiting our country enough. So we need to make sure that we are staying ahead of this technology development, because it's so crucial to the future of our economy and society. And I don't want our economy and society forever and a day to be dependent on technology which comes from other countries. We need that to be developed here. And that's what I'm really trying to find a way forward for.
It's really interesting hearing you talk about this in such detail. I know the law hasn't arrived yet, but just clarify one thing for me. Why would people have to choose to opt out from their copyrighted material being used by AI? Surely the default should be that it's not allowed to be used by AI unless the copyright holder says, yes, you can. I don't understand why it's that way around.
So we're talking about technology which needs enormous amounts of data in order to be effective and efficient. We need to make sure that the market for AI being developed in Britain is a thriving market. But I also need to make sure that those people who do feel strongly about it do have the right to opt out and make sure that their material isn't included in the harvesting and the use of general information that's available publicly. Now, this is part of the consultation. It only closed this week, and I haven't actually had access all the time to start digesting the 4,000 responses that we had. I'm really open-minded about how we move forward, but there's one principle I have. I will not have one side forcing me to make a choice between one or the other. We have two fantastic, talented, wealth-creating industries, the creative industries and the AI technology industry. We need to find a way forward. You know, I am the technology minister, so I've been focusing on understanding how far I can take the technology sector to make movements towards the creative arts industry. We also have a culture secretary, Lisa Nandy, and her department's been engaging very fulsomely with the culture sector. And then the minister which is seeing this legislation through, or is responsible for it, is Chris Bryant, who's a minister in both departments. So as a government, we're really responding well to the challenge, but it is going to be a very tricky issue. Lots of people have very strong views, but as I said before, I will not be forced to make a choice between one or the other. We will find a way forward because Britain needs us to. It's
really interesting to hear your responses on that. We look forward to seeing the details, the legislation emerges. Just finally, I wanted to ask you about a pretty major U-turn from BP yesterday in terms of backing down on their targets, particularly as it relates to the environment. What do you make of that?
Lots of companies, lots of organisations are finding their way through the challenges as we get closer and closer to the targets that have been set and they have set for themselves. What I am responsible for is for government policy, and we are determined to get to net zero by 2050. You've seen some of the ways that we've responded since we came into office, which is only 7 months ago. We have accelerated our drive towards renewables. You've also seen recently that the wealth and the jobs that are being created from that drive have actually increased in recent weeks. So we know that they're being highly profitable sectors now in the UK. And where we are designing technology which is new and being used in that move towards climate technology and climate change challenges that we're tackling, then that is giving us a competitive edge in the global market as well. So Britain is doing its best, its best on behalf of Britain. Other companies and organisations are finding their own way through these challenging periods.
Bottom line is, you don't mind. It's up to BP. They're a private company.
We as a country will get to that target, and then as we move forward, we will be requiring other companies to be part of it because they will contribute towards British overall targets as well. And that is the key thing. We will get to our targets. How other people and organisations make their way towards it is up to them. But the British law is the British law, and Britain will get to net zero by 2050.
Peter Carr, great to catch up. Thanks for joining us.
You too. Thanks, Will.